Yay, it's lecture time again, you guys. We're going to continue our lecture on rhythms originating in the atria. So we're going to pick up today with atrial tachycardia. So remember, your rhythms originating in the atria are occurring up top, okay? We know our normal pacemaker of the heart is the SA node. However, with these rhythms originating in the atria, they can be coming from multiple sites within the atria, okay? Now, your atrial tachycardia is coming from a single foci. However, it has P waves that are hidden within the T wave. Remember with the ones we talked about in the previous lecture, they had 3 different P waves, such as your wandering atrial pacemaker and your multifocal atrial pacemaker. Now, with your atrial tachycardia, the key thing with it is your P waves are hidden, okay? You see here we have, these are T waves, but after those T waves, you can't distinguish a P wave, okay? Your rate is going to be between 140 and 250 beats per minute. Your PRI is not going to be measurable. And your rhythm's usually going to be regular with your QRS complexes being normal. Some of your atrial tachycardia can be proximal, in which the rhythm will be going along, and then you'll have this rhythm of tachycardia that suddenly takes over your original rhythm, and that's what's called your atrial tachycardia. And here we see an illustration of that, the proximal atrial tachycardia, where you have, see your rhythm and see how it changes suddenly. You get that sudden irritability. Okay, and with your atrial tachycardia, it can start quickly and stop. Okay, so with the atrial rhythms, we're talking about rhythms that generally affect the P wave, and so here in our illustration it says how different must the P waves be. Well, your P waves are very different with your atrial rhythms, like they're noticeably different. So if you know your PQRST rhythm, then you'll be able, when you locate that P wave, you'll be able to tell with your atrial rhythms that they're very noticeably different. Okay, with atrial flutter is a rapid, identical, undulating waves. They're called F waves, and they look like a sawtooth. Okay. The baseline is absent. See here in the middle, you have nothing but these sawtooth looking waves. And your rhythm can be regular or irregular. Now, atrial fibrillation, there's no discernible P waves as well. And here your atrial just quivering, okay? There's no organized electrical activity. See here, whereas in your previous one with the flutter, you did have the sawtooth waves, but with your fibrillation, it's just little wavy lines. And your rhythm with your atrial fibrillation is usually irregular. Here's another illustration of your P waves. If you look at your P waves in your normal sinus rhythm, see they all look alike. But look with your atrial fibrillation, you can't discern where those P waves are at all. So here's an illustration of atrial fibrillation. And see, this is what's happening with your atrial rhythms. Whereas normally with your normal sinus rhythm, you have that original activity coming from the SA node. But with your atrial rhythms, they can be coming from different areas in the atria. Okay, so another one of your atrial rhythms is your SVT, or supraventricular tachycardia. This arrhythmia has such a fast rate that the P waves may not be seen. Again, the rate is somewhere between 150 and 250. Your rhythm's generally regular, but again, your P waves will be buried in your T wave. Now, people can have SVT all the time, and it can be brought on by drinking too much coffee or Coke, too much caffeine intake, nicotine, or smoking, stress, and anxiety. So we probably all walk around at some point in our lives with some SVT, okay? Here's another illustration, comparison with the normal sinus rhythm and your SVT. Okay, and here's an illustration of all your atrial rhythms. Gives you a side-by-side comparison of each. Now, we didn't talk about the Wolff-Parkinson's-White. It doesn't really focus on that one in your text, or the atrial bigeminy. So on here, you can just focus on the ones that we covered, okay? And of course, it's time for our assignment. So what you're going to do is you're going to make index cards, or you can make a reference sheet if you prefer, or if you don't have any index cards, it's up to you. But what I want you to do is go through and state the criteria for each of the atrial rhythms that we discussed in Chapter 8, and submit your picture when complete. And I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.